I was sitting in a Stamford courtroom, about to lose my son when my ex-husband's lawyer delivered the sentence he had polished until it shone. I was broke, unstable, and unable to provide a real home. Judge Merritt gave the kind of slow nod that can end a life in a single motion. I kept my hands flat on the table and breathed the way my grandmother Ruth taught me. Tell the truth slowly. I did not cry. I only looked at my 7-year-old in the gallery and wondered if he understood that the room had already been tilted against us. A year earlier, I was still married to Gavin Reed, who ran a chain of rentals in small commercial properties through a company nobody outside his circle could explain. I worked in estate planning, had a decent salary, and knew enough about paper trails to recognize when a rich man was hiding behind a clean smile. Our son, Owen, lived between us like a small bridge made of stickers and custody calendars. He drew rain clouds, buses, and dogs exactly as he saw them, never prettier than life. Then I found a loan agreement in our home safe, $180,000 signed by Gavin, made out to a golf friend who had never lifted a hammer on any of Gavin's buildings. When I asked about it, Gavin smiled and told me I did not understand the business. That was the first time I heard my own marriage crack. By winter, I had rented a modest apartment with a narrow hallway and a window that looked over a parking lot. Owen called it our checkerboard view. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he earned a gold star for sleeping there. I pinned his stars to the fridge and repeated Ruth's favorite instruction whenever the world felt crooked: tell the truth slowly and make them wait. Gavin's mother, Carla, visited one afternoon with boots, sweaters, and a smile as sharp as glass. She had once been a family lawyer herself. She looked around my apartment as if she were pricing it for sale, then mentioned lightly that some women simply were not built for conflict. I smiled back and noticed the yellow legal pad sticking out of her tote bag. Soon after, my sister Lena called to ask too casually whether I could really afford the apartment and a lawyer. We had never been close, but the question landed wrong. The next week, Gavin's lawyer opened a meeting by asking how much I earned and whether I could prove I provided enough for. Oh, and I said little. I did not need to say much. They had already chosen their story. What I could not ignore was the sentence I overheard in a hallway outside the lawyer's office. Gavin, speaking to his attorney, said they would begin with the financial angle. Then he repeated the line exactly the way it was later spoken in court. I was broke. I could not even afford food or clothes for the children, and he should not have to trust me with custody. Children, pluro. There was only Owen. It was rehearsed cruelty made to sound like fact. 2 weeks before the hearing, Owen climbed into my car after a weekend at his father's house and told me very calmly that Gavin kept important papers behind a moving bookshelf. He said he had once crawled back there to retrieve a toy and saw a folder with Gavin's company name on it. I did not ask for details. I only asked whether he had taken anything. He shook his head and returned to his crackers. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. I called my boss, who connected me with a forensic accountant. She told me Gavin was likely hiding earnings in his company and paying himself a small salary on paper. Nothing was simple enough to prove before the hearing, but something was wrong. Then, on the morning of court, Owen stood up in the gallery, held his backpack with both hands, and asked if he could show the judge the letter he found in Dad's safe. The room froze. Judge Merritt let him approach. Inside the backpack was a folded memo from Gavin's lawyer, outlining a plan to dissolve the company after the divorce and shield millions from division. The judge read it once, then twice, and finally looked straight at Gavin. His face emptied. The hearing that had begun with my supposed poverty ended with an emergency audit, temporary custody to me, and supervised visitation for him. Weeks later, the accounting report confirmed what my son had accidentally uncovered. Gavin had hidden more than $2 million. The court amended support and his lawyer withdrew. Lena apologized by text. Carla stopped calling. Ruth's inheritance helped me buy a small condo in Norwalk, and Owen painted his room the color of his rain jacket. On the fridge, the stars still shine, but now they mean something bigger than survival. They mean we told the truth slowly and it was